What it is it's big game hunting with a political preference. And that's the angle. Joining us now for reaction, civil rights attorney and California RNC committeewoman Harmeet Dhillon and former Clinton advisor Richard Goodstein. Richard.
Yes, ma'am. So a couple things. First, your friend Dinesh D'Souza was shunned even by CPAC for mocking the Parkland students. I mean, he doesn't have entirely clean hands. In fact, if you go, well, here's the point. If you go back and look at the transcript,
that's not about what we're talking about. Well, keep it focused. We have limited time.
Okay, I'm saying
focus on the prosecution. What we found in that FBI file, which they did not want to release, references to his political viewpoint. Why? Why are they referencing his body of work? Why are they referencing his political viewpoints if he was someone who was just, oh, we have to throw the book at him for $20,000 in a campaign that was down 25 points?
So it was a knowing violation. That was why it was criminal. When Trump says, well, he could deal with a fine. No, actually, you don't deal with criminal campaign finance violations by just a fine. You actually, again, it was knowing, it was intentional. No,
there's prosecutorial discretion.
He pled to the fact that he knew exactly what he was doing, and he even deceived the candidate about it, right? And he frankly goaded the trial judge, who was a former staffer to a Republican senator, and tried to basically, and he could have gotten 2 years, and he got 5 months of probation. 5 years.
Tab Turner, Arkansas trial lawyer, he reimbursed donors $8,000 to John Edwards' 2004 campaign. He had a $9,500 civil fine. Pierce O'Donnell, Harry Whitmore, we have a whole list of people, similar situations where there were straw donors. Again, $20,000, very small amount. Shouldn't have done it, but to me, Harmeet, this looked at the time. He'd come out with that movie about Hillary Clinton, Obama. I mean, this was someone who was highly effective in a world dominated by the left, namely filmmaking.
Right, absolutely, Laura. I don't think there's any other conclusion. You laid it out well in your angle about why it's clear that information was hidden. He was treated very differently based on his political viewpoint. There's also the additional factor that Dinesh has mentioned, that the prosecutor in question, Preet Bharara, has been known and was known at the time for going after high-profile Indian American targets. He's, prominent in the Indian American community himself. And, it's important to remember that it's not the Department of, convict whoever you can to help your friends. It's the Department of Justice. And prosecutors are supposed to exercise their discretion, and that discretion is exercised every day in not bringing convictions like this. And one of the key facts here is the reason that he had to plead guilty was he was being threatened by the prosecutor with an additional 5-year sentence for obstruction of justice on top of the 2 years, which is the penalty for the fairly penny ante offense of less than $25,000.
No, yeah, they turn the screws on people every time. And I'm speaking as a former criminal defense attorney. That's kind of in my blood, and we need prosecutors, and they serve an incredibly important purpose, and there are lots of dedicated people out there. This case was ridiculous from the beginning. It should not have been handled this way. I want to play a montage here from media figures today, and Richard, I want you to react to this. What they said Donald Trump could be signaling with this pardon. Let's watch.
Pardoning him now is sort of a brazen act that sends a message that he's going to intervene and issue pardons basically on his own whim.
President Trump seemingly passing out pardons to heroes of the far right almost as eagerly as Oprah once gifted Pontiacs to suburban moms.
We're one step closer to being a third world power. This is destroying the whole idea of independent justice.
It is hard to think of someone more undeserving of a pardon than Dinesh D'Souza.
Richard.
I can think of some.
You talked about Blagojevich, who frankly ended up in jail because he had the appointment power. He could have appointed anybody to the Senate, but he did it corruptly.
That was dismissed.
Well, but I'm saying
that was overturned.
Well, but I'm just saying he used his power in a way. We all heard the tapes, right, about how he was doing it like a mafia figure, right? The fact of the matter is Donald Trump has unfettered pardon power, but he can't use it corruptly. You may disagree with these characterizations about what people said about sending signals to Roger Stone and Paul Manafort and and Michael Cohen, but all the crimes, obstruction, lying, etc., campaign finance, you go list by list. That's exactly what that cast of characters looks like they're going to be charged with.
You agree that Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 is an absolute
He could
power.
fire Comey, but he can't do it for corrupt reasons. He could use the pardon power, but he can't use it for corrupt reasons.
But you're saying the pardoning of Dinesh D'Souza could be tantamount to obstruction of
I'm
justice?
saying if you look at all the people
Wow.
he's pardoned and the people he talked about pardoning today, every single one of those crimes.
How about Mark Rich?
Racist.
How about your old guy, Clinton with Mark Rich?
And you know what?
Fugitive from justice.
There was no pardon in the Clinton,
A
Bush, or Obama
fugitive from
administrations in the
justice.
first 2 years.
Who
None.
cares?
Well, the
It's an
point is-
absolute power.
No, it is an absolute power, but there's
Mark
a reason.
Rich,
Yeah.
he traded illegally with Ayatollah Khomeini's Iran. 53 Americans were hostage there. In 1979, he did deals with Gaddafi's Libya against U.S. law. The list goes on and on. That was a hideous, hideous pardon with political ties as well, because his wife is a big campaign donor.
I think it
to
was a
the
big
Clintons,
mistake.
Denise
Listen,
Rich.
I think Bill Clinton
And
regrets
then we had the Puerto Rican terrorist group pardon on the part of Obama. So look, I criticize these things, but the idea, Harmeet, that this is a big signal to people, I think Donald Trump sees this as an injustice. I think Martha Stewart is a big liberal. The idea that like pardoning Martha Stewart would send a Martha Stewart was, again, Jim Comey was the Southern District of New York, U.S. attorney at the time. She was a big fish get for Comey. That was a huge feather in his cap. That was another ridiculous prosecution. Harmeet.
Right, absolutely, Laura. What he's looking at right now is pardoning a couple of Democrats. You mentioned Blagojevich, who actually didn't. There's no crime proven there, and Martha Stewart. When you can't get them on a substantive offense, which is what happened in the Martha Stewart case, you try to get them on this process crime, and it would absolutely be just for him to pardon her and others who've been unjustly witch hunted for the purposes of their own careers. Nobody today can doubt that James Comey and also Patrick Fitzgerald, who's a two-timer there with the Scooter Libby situation as well, acted in their own self-interest and not in the interest of the country, or certainly in the interest of justice. They should not be allowed to abuse their positions to do this. And I think other Democratic and other Americans would applaud the president for righting those wrongs. And I hope he does that.
All right, guys, thanks so much. I would say Conrad Black, also another outrageous prosecution by Patrick Fitzgerald. Have you noticed how the media are suddenly pushing Jim Comey's version of events in the Russia probe? We may have found the reason for this suspicious onslaught, and we're going to discuss it next with Ari Fleischer and Saul Weisenberg.